Hello, all, and welcome to the Star Trek Picard review. Oh, Lord. All right, Loki, how are you doing?
You know that scene in it's not Happy Gilmore. It's in Billy Madison where the judge is like, you made absolutely no sense. Your comments have been horrid, and honestly, everyone in this auditorium is now dumber from having listened to what you have to say. That's kind of how I feel after watching this episode. I think we all are now dumber from watching episode 2 of Picard.
Ah. All right, well, we'll take a quick spin through chat. This should be quick. Mark Danefully Tired, welcome. And he mentions that other show, STD. Oh, God. Mrs. Canuck, welcome, my dear. Dave Bob, welcome, sir. And he says unwatchable. I don't know if I'm going to be watching this just to see how much my blood pressure gets rectified or. See, here's the problem I have. I came into this this is the way I expected this to go. I expected you to hate it, me to like it, and probably by the end of this, me and you having at least one or two shouting matches. The problem is
Mhm.
the more I watch this, the more I think we're both going to be sitting here going, "What the fuck?"
That's the way I
It's
was with
not where
season
I,
1.
not where I foresaw this happening. Because I liked the first season, you know this.
I know.
And I had high expectations for season 2. So if anybody's going to sit there in the comment section and say that you're just hating on Picard to hate on Picard, I got news for you. I stood alone many, many times getting shit on because I liked the first season.
See, I've been through this. I've been through this with STD. I've been through this with the first season of Picard. Yeah, whatever lower expectations, whatever that show's name was. Yeah, I've been there with that. Where everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's so good," and you're being too hard on it, Loki. No, the disrespect and the basically how they were just waving the disrespect in our faces. Whatever Janeway's doing on the Janeway Nickelodeon cartoon show is just as bad. So yeah, I'm here. I've been here. I've been in the same position for the last 3 years of going, what? And even before that with the movies, yeah. So, and I was even kind of, I liked the casting in the first movie. I just didn't like the story, and I got blasted for that and called a hater. So,
Yeah. Well, see, for me, I've had no use for STD. Even since season 1, I've had no use for it. But Picard, I liked. And I think some of it was the fact that TNG was my entry point. I explained this last time when we were having our talk on your channel, I think. Star Trek Next Generation was my Trek. Next Generation was where I entered the fandom. Right? When I went out and bought a uniform, it wasn't the original series. It wasn't DS9. It wasn't Voyager. It was a TNG captain's uniform. And unfortunately, because I was young and stupid, it was the One Piece. Remember that terrible uniform that was the One Piece with the zipper in the back? Yeah, I had that sumbitch, okay? But anyway, that, TNG was my track. Picard was my captain. Riker was my first officer. The Enterprise E was my ship. Still is my ship. I stopped playing Stowe the minute I got the E, and my guy was a captain. I was good to go. I didn't need another goddamn ship. I had the Enterprise E. I was good. So I got the E. I was happy. In fact, my biggest takeaway from the movies was every time they tried to blow up the Enterprise E. And my thing was, you motherfuckers, they just got the ship. Stop it! Fuck off!
yeah, yeah.
Fuck off! Quit trying to destroy my ship, you fuckers! Anyway. But for me, Picard was my captain. And it wasn't that I didn't like the original series. It's just Next Generation was the thing. the new when I was younger, and the original series would come in like the way the channel had it set up was TNG would play, and then the original series would play right after it. So you'd watch both. But Picard was my captain because I was young and the ship was nicer and cooler and it could separate, and it was my jam. You had Data, you had Worf, and after season 1 anyway. And it was my Trek. And then I kind of liked DS9, couldn't stand Voyager. And then STD came out. Well, Enterprise, I couldn't stand that either. And then STD, and I was like, ick. I think I checked out of Star Trek Discovery when they cut off a baby's head. That was my checkout point. That was tremendous. Yeah.
I lost all interest in Discovery when they lit up the mushroom based spore drive for the first time. I said no, I'm done. So I never got to that point until after we were going to review season 3.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I was like, okay, I'll get a big bottle of vodka and I'll just power through. Yeah. And see what happens. And it got worse and it got worse and it got worse. See, me and you are different though, because I watched the original series all through. I mean, that was that one of the first things I remember ever watching on TV is sitting down with my dad when he would be home from deployment and watching TOS. And when TNG came out, I didn't like it because it wasn't the swashbuckling adventures like it was in the original series. I as a kid, you want action and sword fights and all that. And we didn't really get that in TNG at all until much later. And it was when we got, Worf and war fighting and the Klingons and the more of that I was like, okay, I'm getting into this. But then DS9 came along. To me, DS9 wiped everything out. Sisko was the man. He had Worf. You had fighting. You even had Marcus of Queensberry rules with him and Q. Sisko and Q had a boxing match. It brought a lot of that back. So to me, it was like DS9 was perfect because it was the meld of the intellectual Star Trek along with adventure and excitement and battle. And it's kind of like everything came together for me in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. And see, for me, just because I always have been an odd duck, TNG was more my pace because Picard was the captain that didn't break his morals, right? Whereas Kirk bend a rule or two if it fits the narrative. Whereas Picard, he didn't break the rule unless he had to. Absolutely had no choice. And to me, that was more because Picard to me was more, I guess, like my dad than Kirk would have been. To some degree. Kirk had some aspects of my dad, but that's besides the point. But growing up, it was, duty and, stuff like that was drilled into me by my dad. Just a brief reminder, my dad was PPCLI in 1944. But I wasn't in for the, space battles. That wasn't my thing. Like when my friends were all playing combat sports, I was playing chess. Right? That was, the strategic. Q is my favorite because I love the mastermind. It's why the Emperor is my favorite in Star Wars. The guy who pulls the strings behind the scenes. The one motherfucker who can just change everything in a blink of an eye and not give a shit.
Which happens in this episode.
Yeah. Right? Whereas, my friends growing up were Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Boba Fett. No, mine were Vader and the Emperor. The Emperor I loved because, he's a conniving little bastard. And he pulls the strings behind the scenes, and everybody else gets blamed for it. And he's a strategic mastermind. And those were the characters I got drawn to. Because it's one thing to blast your way into somewhere. It's another thing to walk in and have them lay down and open the door for you. Which is what the Emperor would do. He'd make it so they think it was their, in their best interest to let him in somewhere they shouldn't. Whereas, Han Solo is just going to blast his way in. And those weren't the characters I drew to. So, for me, Picard was my captain. He had his faults, but at the end of the day, you could, dollars for donuts, bet what Picard was going to do. And usually it was the right thing to do. And then Riker was there to bend the rules when he had to. Because Riker was more like Kirk than Picard ever was. I think I could say that without getting ostracized. But so now that we've talked about Past Track, let's get on to today's topic, which is Picard Season 2. Oh, God.
The trial never ended, Captain.
Yes. So for me, this is an episode of many different emotions. The opening to this episode I liked. I have a few questions. But Picard and Q always do well on screen together. They always have. They always will. I mean, I think they could read the freaking telephone book and I'd be happy. But that's just me. That's fanboy me, right?
Right.
This is fanboy me. Picard and Q are on screen. I'm a happy man. They can be reading the fucking phone book and I'll be happy. However, as we talked about, there are a few glitches.
Yeah.
The slap.
I didn't like the slap. I can understand people thinking that it's funny. I can understand people be going like, holy shit, Q just backhanded Picard. Q would never backhand Picard. He'd never have to backhand Picard.
No.
This has always been an intellectual game of cat and mouse. Q being the cat, Picard being the mouse. That's the way it always is. That's the way it's always been. That's the way it always should be, is an intellectual game of cat and mouse.
Yeah, they're not playing war games. They're playing chess.
Yeah, and
they've always played chess.
And I'm afraid that's not what's going to happen here. And I think the slap is foretelling of what we're going to get, because there's a couple things that get brought up in this episode, namely 2024, presidential year, yay, where we find out that that some things have changed, and the Federation is no longer the Federation, and the history is no longer the history, and Picard's got a trophy room full of skulls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ducat being one of them.
There's some things that I believe, again, are thrown in for member berries. Look, it's member berry time.
Ducat.
That do not make sense. Yeah. And Cisco, General Cisco's brought up. And I want to say that if the Federation was a militaristic, xenophobic, head-hunting society that cuts the head off of aliens, no Bajoran wormhole, alien prophet, whatever you want to call them, would have ever taken human form and had a relationship with a human man, and Cisco would have never been born.
Yeah.
I think it was a mistake. Okay, you know what? Picard has this big throwdown with Ducat. Have that instead of Cisco being there. These people don't think about that. They don't. They
Yeah.
don't like wrap their brains around that. They just go, "Member Barry. Oh my God, we can bring up Cisco. He won't be in the episode, but we'll bring up his character."
Yeah.
When it shouldn't be. Again, Member Barry. So
Yeah. But for me, the member berry part of episode 1 and episode 2 is pretty heavy. I mean, they went pretty heavy. I mean,
yes.
in this episode, they name drop 100 at least.
Oh yeah, and we're supposed to be like, oh my God, look what they did. No, you. Just because you know the name of a character doesn't mean you know anything about that character.
Here's the other thing I don't like. They're on the same fucking ship. I don't like that. Because in this timeline...
Rossi? AKA,
in this timeline, right? He's supposed to be some freaking captain or whatever the fuck.
Colonel. He's a colonel.
Of this. Why the fuck is he in the Rossi?
And by himself, I might add.
Why the fuck is he in the Rossi? Why isn't he in a Federation, like a starship?
And just for everyone out there, I know the Rossi is from The Expanse.
Yeah.
But it is the Rossi. It's Rossi, Star Trek Rossi. So I'm going to call it the Rossi because, yeah.
Right? So he, why is he in that ship?
He shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be. He should be in a Galaxy class or something of the equivalence.
And why are they still fighting the Vulcans?
Yeah.
That's something that should have been that now. Even the Mirror Universe got that right. First group of aliens we enslaved, Vulcans. We'll take the Vulcans, but apparently the Vulcans are still out there we're leading the resistance along with the Andorians and the Romulans and they're trying to make Mirror without making Mirror. Q even says in a mirror darkly, which is the name of one of the Mirror episodes. But this isn't the Mirror universe.
No.
So, yeah.
But in some ways, I'm intrigued. But I'm intrigued for the wrong reason, I think. I want to see where this goes.
We know where it goes. 24th or our century, the 21st century, 2024.
Yeah, they're coming back. They're going to involve the politics. Of course they are.
And here's my...
and I said this last season. Get fucking Picard out of the writing room. Get Stewart the fuck out of the writing room.
And you know what my prediction is? Just so everybody out there knows what my prediction is. They're going to go back to 2024 and they're going to stop a Empire Global CEO, whatever, from ruling the planet and elect the first female president of the world, UN, something. That is exactly what's going to happen. And that's going to prevent this evil dystopian future from ever existing, is getting rid of the Orange Man bad and bringing in the Whammon. The Whammon fix everything. If it wasn't for this Whammon, none of this would ever happen. You see, we already went back in time and met Zephram Cockman, the male, toxic man that made Warp Drive. And because he made Warp Drive, because this toxic man who wanted to retire on an island with beautiful women, beautiful naked women, because of him, we get Starfleet. That's not good enough. We got to go back and we got to say, without this woman coming into power and being elected to rule the world, Starfleet's never going to happen.
Yeah.
We're never going to get it. They'll prevent the rise of Orange Man bad. Thank you, Chris Persia.
It's going to be heavy politics. And that's because Stewart's allowed in the writing room, which is just wrong. You never put Stewart in the fucking writing room. But on the other hand, I can't be, I'm in a tough spot because I can't be a hypocrite to what I said last year. And going into this, and this is where last season I gave it a lot of rope. A lot more rope than most people did. Because at the end of the day, The Star Trek that you and I loved growing up was not coming back under Stewart.
Well, not even under Stewart, Kurtzman, any of them.
Kurtzman, anyway, it's not coming back. And the reason I say it be under Stewart is because this isn't the first show they've pitched to him, right? They've come back to it a couple of times, and he's gone, no, not doing it. The only way they were getting him was this. It was the only way they were getting Stewart. So I knew that going in. But there becomes a point where, okay, you set all this stuff up in season 1. And like I said on Tuesday when we reviewed episode 1, all the interesting stuff you could have done, you tied up in a tight little bow and said, okay, next. All the stuff from season 1. I think where this season is going to fall short is the fact that you don't need to see season 1 to watch season 2. You just don't.
No.
You do not need to see season 1 to watch season 2.
And unfortunately, I keep saying this, I keep repeating this. What you have Disney, and you have Paramount, and you have other studios that are making what is called disposable entertainment. Entertainment that is not rewatchable, entertainment that does not last the ages, entertainment that once you've seen it, once you've consumed it, can be thrown away and you never have to worry about it again.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, throughout this episode, you get certain the interactions between Stewart, Picard, and Q are really the strongest points of this episode, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that only lasts minutes.
Yeah, it's like 10
minutes. Done. And the
like
rest is just kind of like...
Right? Because Stewart and Q on screen together are great. And they carry that first 10 minutes of this episode. And then you see Q smack Picard, and you're like, no, what are you doing? And then Picard kind of tries to cover for it by going, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
There's something wrong. You're not you. What the fuck? And he even, gives his, inner dialogue of there is something wrong with Q. Q seemed off.
Yep.
He's normally, crazier than, batshit crazy, but he's never this batshit crazy.
He's never physically struck.
Yeah, right? Picard. So Picard already knows there's something wrong.
And that's beneath him as a Q. That little love tap, that is completely, totally beneath him to do that.
I mean, it's much easier for him to, snap you out an airlock. That I could see Q doing, and then bringing you back. You go out into space for 30 seconds and come back. That's Q. Or snaps his fingers and you're halfway across the fucking galaxy just for fun. Find your way back, shithead.
Yeah.
That's Q. But Q has always manipulated his way through things.
Cat and mouse, like we said. Yeah.
He's never physical. But now he is, which... I mean, some of if you erase what's being said and you just look at the two actors on screen, it's so good to see Stewart and him play off each other because they're so good at it. The problem is then the rest of the cast comes in.
Yep. And they all have the memories they had before, and none of the memories they're supposed to have now. So they have no idea what they're supposed to be doing, how they are supposed to be acting, but they're all out of place. So basically, everyone that was on the Stargazer And we do not know if wannabe Data's daughter has also been affected. That's going to be really interesting to see if she's been affected, if she even exists. But Cisco exists in a world where the Federation turned into the Confederation, and I'm sure that wasn't any kind of slip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and not only that, but I mean, look at it like this. I mean,
Confederates.
it's I don't know. I think unfortunately what we're gonna get is a highly political show that should not be political. And we said this last season. It should be subtle. Star Trek at its best when it deals with political or timely events was subtle.
Yes.
Very subtle. Not in your face. Doesn't work. The other problem I have is, and this was my biggest dislike of this episode. It didn't feel Trek. It felt Star Wars.
Oh, the pew pew. Yeah, we talked about the pew pew pew.
Well, not only that, just the whole feel. If you look at the tone, the feel, the dialogue, it felt very Star Wars-esque. Halfway through the show, you're waiting for the Emperor to say something.
Oh, you mean Annika, Emperor Annika?
No, you're waiting for Palpatine. You're expecting Palpatine.
Oh.
I'm sorry, but you're expecting Palpatine.
The First Galactic Confederation.
I'll put this in your head, okay? Do you remember when they were about to execute the Borg Queen?
Yes.
Okay, take that exact setting. Take away the Borg Queen, right? Fast forward to Force Awakens. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Go to the scene where, what's his face, that useless commander.
Disney, Star Wars, and CW knockoff Star Wars, Chris.
Yeah, that stupid fucking idiot. He's giving the big speech in front of the stormtroopers.
The redheaded commander.
Yeah, that idiot. Okay. Take a look behind him. Take a look at the setting. It's 1-for-1. The flags are hanging down. Right
well,
behind
take
him.
a look back into the late 30s, early 40s, and you'll see.
And that too, 39, 40, 41.
Hux, yeah.
Yeah,
Cabatino, yes. Hux,
yeah,
thank you.
Think about it. It's exactly the same.
Yeah. Because these people are completely wrapped around this idea that that's where we are today. They've never seen like real horror, so they think that's where we are today. Yeah. That's where they think we are. That's what they think all this is playing out at. Oh, we're at a precipice where we either can turn all of our lives around and become socialists, and yeah, or we can destroy the planet.
But here's the problem. This isn't new.
No.
To me, this makes me laugh. Every time they do this, it makes me laugh. Because you know what? If you go back, 10 years, it was the same fucking argument.
Yes.
It was the same fucking argument when Bush Jr. or Bush Sr. was going up against fucking Clinton.
Yeah.
Same fucking argument then. It's the same fucking argument when Bush Jr. got elected.
Yeah, but now we've got a lot more multimedia and social.
Well, now we have more keyboard warriors.
Yeah. Everybody's online, whether they're on their phone.
Everybody's online. Everybody's connected, and everybody has a voice.
That's right.
But it's the same narrative. Every election is the same narrative. If you vote in this guy, our whole world is dead. Never happens. Even if that guy gets voted in.
Well, besides rising gas prices, but
Well, yeah, but I mean, let's face it. There's also a war going on.
some people want people to work and some people don't, and that's the thing. I saw a really stupid argument about how I'm expected to go back to work and make nothing while all this is going on in the world, and I'm like, all this was going on in the world before the coup,
Yeah.
and you were working then. You just got happy sitting on your ass, and you don't want to do that now. You got happy and fat sitting on your ass, and now you want someone to continue to pay your bills. When there are people that would die to work, there are people that do die to work. There are people that would love to get out and work every single day and make a paycheck. And then,
Well, okay. I can voice to this. I am 37.
Oh my God,
kills
I'm 5 years older than you? Fuck.
It
I didn't know
fucking
that.
kills me that I had to say goodbye to a 15-year career.
Yeah, I know.
It kills me. It kills me that I have to rely on disability to pay my bills at 37. At 32, I was told you're done. Think about that. 32, you're done. And there's nothing I can do about it. This is as close to working as I can get. Because as people have noticed, my videos don't come out on time all the time. I can get away with that on YouTube. I can't get away with that at a job. Yeah, my back's out. I'm not coming in today. Well, then don't come in tomorrow. All right?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Dialysis kicked my ass last night. I'm staying in bed. Well, then I guess you don't have a job tomorrow. So, I mean, at this point, I was retired at 32. I'm basically permanent disability. There's no recovery because there's no cure for anything I got, which is lovely. But I would kill to be able to go back to work. But I can't. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to overcome. Was still being able to look at myself in the mirror and go to work. My son just turned 18. Now, some would argue that I should be forcing him out to work right now. And they have a valid argument. But I don't. I want him to finish his schooling first. And some of that is dad's pride. And I'm getting off topic here, so I'm sorry, Loki. But some of that
No,
is
it's all right.
It's dad's pride, because when I was fucking 18, my dad was dying. I was working 2 jobs, and my daughter was about to be born. I had left school in grade 9 because my dad had a heart attack and broke his hip in the same week. And it came down to either my dad went into a home or somebody was home with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year. I walked out of school the next day. I didn't walk back in until my daughter was 4. No, 5. I didn't graduate until my daughter was in her teens. I don't want that for my kid. My son will graduate first because I know how it works. You go to work, you're like, well, I'll go back next year. I'll just go catch a job this summer and I'll go back next year. Or I'll go to work and school at the same time. Well, then work starts offering you more shifts. I'll go to school or make $150. Yeah, I can't go to school today. Work called. And then you never graduate. You put it off and 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 you put it off. And you end up in some fucking no-end job making minimum wage, wishing to God you'd finish that grade 12, but now you've got a family and you've got bills to pay and a roof to make sure you keep over your head. So I'll be damned if my son has to do that. I'd rather him swallow his pride now, go on social assistance for now, finish his schooling, get that grade 12, and then go to work. Because he needs that foundation. So that's my choice. But anyway, back to Picard. Sorry, I got sidetracked there.
It's your show, brother.
But, you know.
And yeah, what Pat S says right there, damn, Canucks like a man's man from the 40s. Reminds me of my dad who went to work in a steel mill at 15 because he was too young to enlist. Hell, my dad lied about his age and enlisted.
Yep, my dad did too. Yeah. Well, if you figure it out, Dad was in PPCLI in 44. He was only born in 28. But yeah. So he's, you know, so he I want him to have what I didn't have.
Yeah, of course you do. It's what
Right?
every parent
That's
wants.
every dad's rule, right? He will, you know, even like now I'm getting way off topic. We'll get back to Picard, I promise. You know, there's been times that during this health thing that I'm going through where they have hinted at the boy learning how to do things. Like they wanted me to do home dialysis. And they were like, well, your son lives with you. Your son could train. And I'm like, my son is never, ever going to have to be put in a situation where if he screws something up, he kills his dad.
Yeah.
That is not happening, folks. Next. Right? And, you know, yeah, I did it. And I'm proud of what I did for my dad. But my son isn't going to, if he doesn't have to, he's not going to. Right?
Right.
And that's just the way it is. Some people think I'm a selfish son of a bitch, but I don't give a fuck. You know, my life is my life and deal with it. You know, but back to Picard because that's easier and less emotional to talk about. But so Picard to me, it's intriguing because I want to see more of Picard and Q. But the rest of it is going to be an absolute fucking mess.
Do you think you will much more besides the beginning and the end?
If I had my way, no. If I had my way, like I said, I mean,
I honestly think you're going to have your way. I don't think we're going to see Q again to the end of this season, but I could be wrong.
Like for me, like I said, and
the
again,
Borg Queen's your information. The Borg Queen is now your information.
Is
hoarder.
now your information.
Where do we go? What do we do? How do we do it? Yada yada yada. Talk to the Queen.
But and you know, so, and I said it on Tuesday. There better be some fucking way of doing this. Not just Q snapping his fingers. So now they've got the Borg Queen. And it is within her realm of, yes, okay, we could buy this. So they've done that. So where little credit is due, give it to them. Q, as I said Tuesday when we started this, he needs to be used sparingly. Yes, I'd love to see them every episode because I just light up like a kid at Christmas. If I see Q on the screen, I'm a happy man, except for that shit they did in Lower Decks. But for the most part, if I see Q and Picard on the screen at the same time for the first couple of seconds, I'm a happy little kid again. But that's going to get old and quick. So they've got to use him sparingly. So if, like you just said, we don't see him again until middle of the season and then in the end, well, I would be hypocrite if I went and said, well, they got to use him every episode. When I just said, I want him to be used sparingly. Because otherwise it's not going to work. Because, I mean, even in the TNG episodes, you'd see him at the beginning, flashes throughout the show, but very, very briefly, and then near the end. He wouldn't be in the entire episode. Because there's only so much you can do with Q before it becomes redundant. If it's just Q snapping his fingers all the time, it loses something. You need those couple of verbal battles, and I stress that, verbal battles between Picard and Q. Peppered out throughout the show, but not all at once, and not every episode. Or you kill it. Because just like if you really like ice cream and you eat ice cream 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you're going to get sick of it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. So Picard and Q need to be on screen, but it needs to be kept to a minimum. He can't be in every episode. He can be referred to. And if he does show up in every episode, it has to be brief. Very, very brief. And there has to be a reason for it. But, you know, like, even if you had Q go, you win this one, Picard. And then he snaps his fingers and he disappears at the end of the episode. Because they did something or whatever to foil something. And he shows up and goes, you win this round. And then he snaps his fingers. That's a Q spot. Not Q sitting there for 15 minutes, slapping Picard around. Q has to be used sparingly. I'm not sure how I feel about Picard and the Borg Queen just getting along all of a sudden. Because like I told Loki, the major issue I have with this episode is Picard sat there with a phaser pointed at the Borg Queen and he didn't pull the trigger.
And let's remind everybody, the Borg Queen the Borg Queen that was on the Stargazer was only stunning people.
Yeah.
This is, of course, to reinforce the idea that the Borg Queen was there in peace and nobody trusted her, and we have to trust women. We have to trust and believe all women. We have to trust the Borg Queen's not going to do anything bad when she takes over all the ships and all of that. I believe she was taking over all the ships to use the transporters to beam in drones and save Borg lives, and that's what this is all going to be about. Is trust the whamming queen. Trust the Borg queen. The Borg's not the bad guys anymore, and because Picard set up the self destruct, now we've got to go back and we've got to learn tolerance now from the very beginning. We've got to learn diversity inclusion from the very beginning. Let's welcome the Borg with open arms.
You know, I just had a terrible thought. And it's bad when my brain goes to these places. But there was a comment that, watch, he's a Borg drone from Gap Stargate. I don't think he's going to be a Borg drone because we've already done that. Locutus. But here's an interesting thing that I just thought of that made me go, no, please don't do this. What is Picard?
He's a robot.
What can the Borg queen take over?
Robots.
Just saying. Shit. Yeah. Yeah, that would be bad. So Picard wakes up and goes, what the fuck am I doing helping this bitch? And then all of a sudden she takes over his body. Yeah, that could be bad. Although I don't think they have the intelligence in that writing room to come up with that, but that's besides the point. I don't know. I'm reserved with my estimation. I already know that they're going to go heavy political. We knew that going in because Stewart's in it. And if you pay attention to anything that Stewart says for more than 5 minutes, you will know that he is very left and very political and very vocal.
And Star Trek's a political platform now, straight from Kurtzman. This is not a vessel for storytelling and adventure. This is a way to use to spew political nonsense, and that's a platform for political ideology now. Thank you.
Yes. But it could still be good, depending on how they do it. I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to do it well from these first 2 episodes, because a lot of what I wanted to see in season 2 isn't here. From season 1, there was a lot of promise and there was a lot of things I wanted to see play out that we're just not going to get to play out because it's already done and dusted. Like I said on Tuesday, I wanted to see Picard sitting in front of the Federation arguing for the synthetics as a synthetic. That would justify him becoming a fucking synthetic. It would match the story. But we didn't get that. Season 2 starts, that's already done.
I don't think these people know what they're doing.
Right? I mean, that's already done. That could have been a 3 fucking part fucking story right fucking there. Opening of season 2. The synthetics being brought back. And Picard leading the charge. There's your political march bullshit. But it would tie in with the story. Well, we didn't get any of that. So that idea is out the fucking window. Does Picard, and then does Picard retake the uniform? Or does he not? That could have been another plot in this. Does
they're
Rios
not going to do that? They're
right? That's where they could have gone with this season. Does Rios take the uniform back?
I think you're kind of feeling what I was feeling last season. Is they could have done this, they could have done all this stuff, and they're not going to do that. And it's because they aren't.
I was with them for season 1. You of all people know that.
I know that.
There is a video out there that Mrs. Canuck threw in the chat last time that proves that I was on board for season 1. So if anybody goes in my chat and says, "Oh, you just hating on new Picard," you go back to last season.
Oh yeah.
I went toe to toe with Loki, so Loki. So there. But my problem with this season so far is if Picard and Q are on screen, the show is tolerable. But the rest of the crew doesn't feel like a crew.
It's because they're not.
Right? You have 7 of 9. Okay. You have Rios. I liked him in the first season. Because he was quirky. I never did like that stupid scientist doctor person. Never did like that blonde.
Oh, the one that used to be a dude.
Yeah, I never did like her. I was kind of hoping she'd get put out an airlock at some point. And then his little Romulan protector, he was kind of cool.
Elrond of Rivendell.
He was kind of cool. And then who else is there? And then I don't know. Like, I don't like the ship. I never did. I was hoping that by the end of season 1 they'd replace it with something. And then in season 2, you kind of get that little brief moment of hope because they're on the Stargazer, and you're like, okay, they've replaced that fucking god awful ship.
Nope.
And then by the end of that fucking episode, they're back on that fucking piece of shit. Steal a better ship, boys. Come on. I would really like to see a close up of that ship.
That's their TARDIS.
The D that they have in that mural.
Oh, that is okay. So that is
class
the.
D. I would really like to see a close up of that son of a bitch.
That is from Star Trek Online. They have a version of that. It is a mirror universe galaxy class.
Yeah.
So yeah, the USS Enslaver, whatever the hell they called it, NSS, whatever the hell they called it.
But it was real. Like, I'd like to see that. That was cool. That could have been cool. But instead, we're back on a shuttle, basically. I mean, the ship isn't that big. It's not a starship. I don't know. I thought they were going to move more in a Federation direction. Even if it was a warped Federation, just give me a fucking Federation ship.
And here's the thing, and this is something, and I don't want to get too far into science here because I don't want to bore the shit out of anybody, but somebody puts this hit. Archer Collin, would their ancestors even met? No, most likely none of them would have ever existed because the way that is speculated to work, and there's something called the butterfly effect, but that it exponentially grows more chaotic out from the point of change. So let's say that you change one thing. Let's say you change an election. 200 years from now, the ramifications of that change will be felt more than within the first 10 years of that change. So if let's say a couple got together 10 years after that change and they got together even after it changed, that doesn't mean that 100 years from now, all those same people will have met. The changes become more dramatic the further time moves along.
Yeah. And I mean, I know they have the Q factor, right? Because that's going to be the end answer to everything, right? So anytime you have a loophole, which is why I'm always nervous when they bring in Q, okay? When you have a plot hole, the answer is Q did it, right? Such as, why, okay, I can understand Picard, but why does Seven not know who she is? Why does Rios? Why does Q did it? Okay. Because what you'd expect is Picard to be brought into this timeline, and then him have to convince Seven and Rios and everyone who they, that this is a fuck timeline and they need to fix it.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you'd expect to happen. But no, everybody else still remembers that they were on the Stargazer. And why? Because Q did it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the tire up of all loophole. Q did it. The problem is, you can't. I said the wrestling term last review. Lazy booking. This just feels lazy booking.
Well, it is lazy writing, and it's disposable entertainment.
Yeah.
And like Project Storytime points out, they called the Stargazer a brand new ship, and they called it a refit.
Yeah.
It's not a refit. They didn't take the original Stargazer and refit an 80-year-old space frame into that ship that you see. No, that is not done. They did not do that. They would not do that. No. So if they're trying to say, oh well, we did it like the Enterprise A, or we did it like the refit Constitution class refit, no.
Yeah.
No.
It's a brand new ship with an old name.
Yeah, it's a brand new ship with an old name. That's why the registry number is different than the original.
Mm-hmm. And like, I can almost forgive certain things like that, just because when it comes to Star Trek, I'm not live or die. And I think I've mellowed out over the years. Because there was a time where I probably would have been thoroughly pissed. Like Star Wars, I get pissed when like some of the stuff that's in that now. But then I question things. Like last season, I go, huh? Like when they killed off that jackass, that guy who was going to experiment on Data.
Yes.
Yeah. I went, yes. And everybody else flipped out. Well, I went yes because, as I said earlier, TNG was my Trek. I hated that son of a bitch. He was going to kill Data. Fuck him. So, oops. Karma's a bitch. But that's just because I'm coming out of TNG, and the only times I've seen him is when he was going to fuck with Data, and I happen to like Data.
And they resolved that. They resolved that at the end of that episode.
Yeah.
Where him and Data were cool, and Data was like, listen, keep sending me your stuff. I'll keep reading over it. And if he hadn't done that, Data would have never been able to create Low. That is something that is
but
Bruce,
as a fan at the time.
Oh yeah, you wanted him to die.
I didn't give a shit if Data forgave him. My ass isn't.
But he did learn his lesson, and he did help. He did help in the creation of Low.
Yeah.
So
Data
it's like
can forgive him, but I'm not. Right? Like that. That's just the way it was, right? As my fandom, I don't care. Data forgave him. That's good for him. I didn't.
They brought him back specifically, and they didn't even use the correct actor.
No.
They brought him back specifically to kill him.
Yeah.
To use him as he started all this type of thing.
Yeah.
And to kill him. And
then the other one that everybody got outraged about season 1, and I'm going to get flack for this, but I didn't like Voyager. So I wasn't Voyager. Emotionally invested in that character.
Oh, you mean 7?
No. The one that got his eye.
Oh, Icheb.
I wasn't invested in him.
I think it's more of the way they did that.
I get the way they did it, but at the same time, I wasn't invested in that character. So to me, it didn't matter.
Well, not many people were
because
invested in that character before that
when
happened.
Voyager was on, to me, he was the Wesley Crusher of fucking Voyager crew. And I wanted Wesley Crusher thrown out an airlock for for how many seasons he was on TNG. I forget now.
They had a dynamic between Janeway and Seven, and then that dynamic changed to Seven with Icheb and the other board kids.
Yeah.
So it's like, Janeway was Mama, and then Seven was Mama, and they kept redefining how those relationships worked.
Yeah. Well, for me,
And Icheb was like a vehicle for that.
yeah, and
He
it just
wasn't.
I never got invested in that character. So for me, my own personal canon in my head, I didn't give a shit. They
Well,
could have thrown him out an airlock. I don't care.
there's also times where you got to see the future in Voyager, like the future of the Federation, where Icheb and that one girl that grew up on the ship that was born on Voyager are on Voyager, and they call Janeway Admiral. And it was like a little foretelling of what's to come, where he's a full grown adult and he's in Starfleet.
Mm-hmm.
So people were rightfully like, well, you gave us this idea that he was going to be this, like this,
yeah.
and then you screwed us all over.
Yeah. Yeah. But for me, like, just from my own canon, I didn't care. To me, it was like, oh, okay, you killed Stormtrooper number 45. I don't give a shit. Right? You blasted Stormtrooper 45 out an airlock. I don't care. Because Voyager I didn't like Voyager very much. I didn't find Janeway a very strong captain. She had her moments, but it didn't connect with me. So for me, it was just like, I didn't care. It didn't bother me as much as it bothered others, and I don't fault anybody who felt that way, because each one of us at the end of the day takes every one of these shows differently, right? Just look at the original series. There are people that Bones is their favorite. Other people it's Kirk, Spock, or it's the trio, or it's Scotty. Me, I like Scotty. For me, I mean, even though TNG is my series, Scotty's my engineer, not LaForge.
Yeah.
Because I can't look at LaForge and not think of the
Reading Rainbow.
I'm sorry,
Have
but I can't.
anything.
Image
It's
out of
in
my
a
fucking
book.
head.
It's
Right?
Reading
Yeah,
Rainbow.
yeah. I can't get that out of my fucking head every time I see him. Right? So Scotty is my engineer. Picard's my cap. It's fucked up. But each one of us has that, internal canon of who we actually give a damn about. Right? And it doesn't matter, it's the same thing in wrestling, it's the same thing in Star Wars, the same thing, whatever it is. Each one of us has the characters we resonate with and the characters we don't really care about. And it'll be different depending on who you're talking to. I was never a big Boba Fett fan. He was a side character. I didn't, and some people might, crucify me for that. But Boba Fett to me was always a side character.
Well, he is. He's only in the movies
right?
For all of 10 minutes
he
total.
He wasn't a big deal for me. It was just I didn't read the comics. I didn't, read the books. I go into the EU all that much. I dabbled in it, but I didn't, I didn't go scripture and verse, as the old saying goes. And maybe that's my problem. I didn't go scripture and verse. Trek, I've always loved it, but I've loved certain parts of it. And to me, certain characters meant something, and certain characters I really didn't care if they threw out the airlock. It's just uh, to me, it didn't matter. So the them killing off him and that guy, I didn't care. Now, if they'd fucked over Riker, well, then we would have had a problem. If they had ripped out Riker's eye and crucified Riker in the middle of the fucking thing, oh, then we've got a problem. But they didn't. So, to me, it didn't matter to me. This season is dangerous because, again, like I said, my two favorites are Picard and Q. If they fuck up Q, so far they haven't. Q has had a few missteps, stuff I would be kind of like, oh, that's not like Q to do that, like the slap. But if they don't go too heavy on it, and Q isn't too overused and oversaturated, then I can be fine. But if they fuck up Q, well, now we're going to have a totally different situation. Then I'm going to hit this with the Rage of Seven Suns because Q is my dude. Right? And I think that was my biggest disconnect in season 1. Was there was a lot of lore and there was a lot of characters that I didn't particularly give a shit about, but the fandom did. But I didn't really care. For all I care, they could throw them out the airlock 17 times and I'd be perfectly fine with it. My one line from last season when everybody went on this kick of Picard has ruined the Borg. My response to that was Voyager did that years ago. Because in a lot of ways, Voyager did neuter the Borg. They were oversaturated in Voyager. And they were made into a joke. Voyager did that a long time ago. Because the Borg, again, like Q, are good in short doses. But, that's just my thoughts on that one. But we are over an hour, so I don't want to keep you too long there, my friends. So let's give this our final grades, and then we'll go to next week, and that should be fun. Maybe they'll just kill off the whole crew, and then we won't have to watch anymore.
I gave episode 1 a 5, and I think that was me being very generous. I'm going to give this a 3, and the only reason why it's going to get a 3 is the first 5 minutes of the episode, and there are problems with that too. So.
Yeah. Well, for me, I am going to stick with a 4. And a lot of that is, and I will fully admit it, a lot of it is me fanboying for 5 minutes. Because Q and Picard are on screen. And when Q is yelling at Picard and Picard is yelling at Q, not smacking Picard, but verbally jousting back and forth, it was great. I was happy. And the rest of the episode was just meh. The actress, and you're gonna have to forgive me, I am terrible with actresses' names. I'm terrible with people's names. But 7 of 9 does not play Dazed and Confused very well.
Nope.
She just doesn't. I'm sorry, she just doesn't. And if anything, she should be comfortable in that position. Authoritative get the job done kind of thing. That was her whole shtick in Voyager. So she should have been able to snap into that role real easy. Instead of being, oh, they're a little authoritarian, and what am I going to do? No, she would have fit right in. What the hell? We're talking about the same, woman who in Voyager, her immediate reaction was blow them out of the sky. Problem solved. And then you'd have Janeway go, no, we don't blow them out of the sky. So there's that. But for me, it's a 4. Because again, some of it is just, the younger me going, Q. But we'll see how long that lasts. It's not good. I mean, there's only so long you can do that. And then it becomes, okay, boys, the novelty has worn off. What are we doing? Right? Like, there's only so much goodwill that can get you.
Yeah.
Right? So for now, they're sitting at a 4 because I think as long as they keep Q sparing, they don't use them too often and too long, they protect Q as a character, which I don't have a lot of faith in these writers to do, but then I probably won't get very angry. But I don't know. We might be in, like I told Loki, we might be into the whiskey by episode 4. We'll see. But so far, I'm reserved because a lot of the things I thought they could explore, they didn't, and that kind of gers me. But we'll see how the dynamic goes moving forward. I'm hopeful that they can still pull something out of this, but I'm at that point right now where it's like, okay, now you've got to give me, you've given me the steak, which is Picard and Cube on stage again. But I need the meat and the potatoes and the carrot. I need the carrots. I need the potatoes. I need I need the full plate. I can't.
I don't think you're going to get that.
No, I don't either, which is sad. But you know what I mean? I'm at that point where, okay, I've had my, I've had my good moment. I've seen those two on screen. I'm happy. Now let's get to the rest of the meal, and I'm just afraid that they're serving up apple pie over and over again and hoping that the apple pie doesn't run out. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody in chat. We will be back next Thursday at 2:00. And hopefully Loki isn't in a depression or a full out rage. Either way.
Or drunk. I could be drunk. Completely drunk.
We could have Loki going, top of the morning to you lads. It will be St. Paddy's, so you never know.
You never know.
All right. With that, thank you all, and take her easy, folks.
Take it easy, everybody.